Let me tell you a story of two queens. The first queen was called to the king's chambers. She was considered very beautiful, highly favored, so the king desired her. So he called her into his court, into his presence, and she refused. And because she refused, she was cast out from the king's palace, from the kingdom, pretty much. She was able to still live there, but she was no longer queen. Now, because of this, they sought out a new queen. And this new queen was eventually found. She was also very beautiful, highly favored, and loved by the king. And anytime the king would call, she would go. She would fulfill the king's request. She would fulfill the king's will. Then there arose in her land a great persecution on her people. The king's right hand man was trying to destroy her people, and her uncle had informed her. See, the right hand man hated her uncle, he hated her people. And this rivalry had gone back thousands of years from the king's right hand man. His ancestors hated the ancestors of the queen. He didn't know the queen was one of these people. So she had a choice to make. She could either just let it be, or she could rise up and do something that could potentially get her killed. She could enter the king's throne room, his court, without permission. And this is, at the time, this was a death sentence. But she fasted and she prayed, and her uncle had told her, maybe you're put here for such a time as this. If you don't do this, God's going to find somebody else to do this. So she got up, after fasting and praying, she dressed herself in fine garments, and she went. She went into the king's court, and he was surprised to see her. He was shocked, but he was also glad. And he said, "What is it that's troubling you? Tell me, and I will be there for you." She invited him to a feast. She was strategic. She invited him to a feast. She started taking time to bless the king, to honor the king, to entreat the king. Right? She made a feast. It took a few days. And on the last day, the king said, "What is going on?" She said, "There's a man trying to kill me and my people. He desires that we all die." And the king said, "Who is this man?" And she said, "That man right there, Haman, is trying to kill me and all of my people. He wants us dead." The king got up angry and stormed out. And then Haman stood up in a panic, trying to convince the queen to spare him and give him mercy. But when the king came back in to the room, he saw Haman standing up and thought that he was going to take advantage of the queen. And he said, "You're going to try to take advantage of my queen, even in my very presence?" And immediately he was taken out and he was executed on the same gallows that he had created for the queen's uncle, Mordecai. Now, this is the story of Esther. So the first queen, Vashti, we don't know much about her in the Bible. She rejected the king. And that's something that I wanted you to pay attention to. She rejected the king. The second queen always obeyed the king. So when she came into his presence boldly and And in a time when that was a death sentence, he had mercy on her. Instead of casting judgment, he gave her mercy. So I want you to remember this. You can go boldly into the presence of our King Almighty, our Lord of glory, Jesus Christ, our God. You can go boldly into his presence. You can go and cast your cares at his feet. You can go boldly before his throne of grace. You don't have to, be afraid that you're going to receive judgment, because you're going to receive mercy. And you have the ability to do that. You are chosen and highly favored. You are beautiful and well loved. And the King wants you to be in his presence. He wants you to take the time to go out of your way to be in his presence. And then, once you're in his presence and you start honoring him, you start lifting him up, you start glorifying him and creating a feast of worship for him. At that moment, the thing that's troubling you, the Haman of your life that wants to destroy you, you can bring to him and he will destroy it. Because it's not that, so God says we are going to face tribulation. His word says we're going to face tribulation, but be of good cheer, for he has already overcome this world. You're going to face tribulation, but he wants you to cast it onto his feet, because he will take care of you. Cast your cares on him, for he cares for you. He wants to take it from you, but you have to get into his presence. You have to be like Esther, not like Vashti. Don't run from the presence of God. Don't reject the call of the King. He's calling you today. He's calling you right now, in this very moment. And I pray that this short word is stirring you deep in your heart to get into the presence of the King and to cast your cares at his feet and to show him honor and love. And if you do that, I promise you, he will take care of you. He's always done it for those that do that. He's done it for me. He's done it for many people that I know. He's going to do it for you. Cast your cares on him, for he cares for you. God bless.